Right, welcome back, and still more discussions on TVC Breakfast this morning. Now, the domestic and international airlines have started selling tickets to Abuja as a destination, preparatory to resuming flight operations to the FCT on Wednesday.
And our correspondent Lillian Ezemark reports.
Minister of State Aviation Hadi Sirika and Minister of Information Lai Mohammed had expressed optimism that the ongoing work on the airport's runway would be completed as scheduled.
It will be 6 weeks of night and day work, and so we got a commitment in writing that once this runway is done, the minimum amount of time, or they give us a guarantee, let's put it this way, that the runway will remain intact in excess of 10 years.
And the federal government has done everything possible to ensure the comfort, safety, and security of the traveling public during the 6-week closure of the Abuja airport.
Specifically, the aviation minister offered to resign if the airport failed to reopen on April 19. He said contractors had given firm assurance that the deadline would be met.
Hold me responsible for taking this critical but yet important decision. And I was personally committed to it.
This was said to have given the airlines confidence that flight operations would resume at the airport as scheduled. Spokesman Dana Air Kingsley Ezenwa confirmed that travelers have also started making demands for tickets to Abuja, and that the airline has begun selling tickets to the destination. Some international airlines have also started selling tickets and have notified their Abuja staff currently on leave of their resumption date. President Foreign Airlines Association in Nigeria, Kingsley Nwokoma, confirmed that foreign airlines have opened booking for tickets and that cargo flights to Abuja have already been booked by some carriers. Industry stakeholders said some international airlines, especially legacy airlines, have stopped selling business class tickets in Naira, but only sell to passengers who are willing to make payment in dollars. The airlines, he said, do not want to face the rigors of changing the currency to dollars since they already have huge revenue in Naira yet to be repatriated. The foreign carriers, especially Europe and US airlines, had cancelled their operations to Abuja airport due to security concerns, though the federal government tried to allay their fears. Lillian Ezemark, TVC News, Lagos.
We are joined now by airline pilot Captain Dong Rangpam. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Morning, Gozi.
That report, our reporter there, Lillian Ezemark, said something about the foreign airlines not wanting to accept Naira but insisting on dollars. Is that even allowed?
It is technically not allowed. However, the reason for that is a failure on our part, because I can't remember exactly which article in the bilateral air service agreements. It specifies clearly that when you have foreign airlines coming to your country and selling tickets in the local currency, which makes sense, you must also facilitate their expeditious repatriation of the proceeds of these ticket sales back to their country. From my last count, over $500 million is still trapped in Nigeria belonging to foreign airlines, which legally our country is obligated to ensure that is repatriated, and it's not. So I think you would observe our government will not be too hard with a stick to stop them from selling in dollars.
Okay.
By the way,
what about the airlines that checked out because of for security concerns?
You cannot blame them. One of the things that is extremely worrying for us here is lack of proper safety management systems. And that is one thing that we'll have to give kudos to the regulatory agency that is now part of our regulations. Foreign airlines, and one of the major reasons why they actually didn't want to go into Kaduna, it is not that they don't want to fly into Nigeria, but because there were no proper risk assessment and safety case as to what could possibly go wrong, and measures in place to mitigate that thing going wrong. And that's the major reason why most of them couldn't come in. If they did, their insurance will shoot up astronomically. You cannot do that. You have to do what is called a management of change. Even before you start a new route, you have to do all the checks and put in case scenarios as to what could most possibly go wrong and do something to stop that from happening.
And unfortunately, that was not done. Okay, so FAN has kept its word by keeping to the date of reopening 2 days before schedule. Yes, we all seem to be happy about that. But 15-year delay in ensuring that the runway was fixed. Shouldn't somebody be paying for that?
I'm glad you asked that question. I would first and foremost like to give kudos to the Buhari-led administration for being able to redeem our image and being able to take care of that runway resurfacing even before the target date. So kudos to the federal government and special kudos to the Ministry of Aviation and other parastatals like FAN that pulled out all the plugs to make sure that this is achieved. NCA was also really on the ball. They made sure the airport was even certified before today. Yes, so hopefully today we will have one of the first landings ahead of tomorrow as the official date. And I think the minister actually beat the bullet, and I'm sure he put his career on the line saying he was going to resign if this deadline was not. So kudos to Honorable Minister of Aviation for ensuring that this happens.
As it is with our culture.
Yes. However, this is firefighting. This should not have happened in the first place. What I would like to recommend, and in very strong terms, is that how on earth would we allow a runway that has a lifespan and a service life of 20 years to exceed that by about 14? I would point out as well that in 2010, there was a program to implement what was initially on the plan from 1982, which is to have a second runway in Abuja. They looked at that and they were dithering on this for a couple of years, up to around 2013. And the thing is this: the runway in Abuja is 3,600 meters, or 3.6 kilometers. That's correct. The width of it is 60 meters. Fantastic. It can take almost the heaviest aircraft we can have in Nigeria. And I'm not talking about the 380. We're looking at the 747-400, which is in excess of 300 tons maximum takeoff weight. Surprisingly, the Jigawa state government actually constructed similar runway in Dutse, an airport that's constructed at the cost of about, I've seen two different figures, 11.5 or 12 billion. Now, there was a bit of a kerfuffle between the House Committee and contractors and vested interest about the second runway with a price tag of 63 billion. And I understand that was why this was jettisoned. There should be an investigation as to what on earth was going to cost 63 billion.
That same runway could be constructed in Jigawa for that less.
That is correct. However, there's so many factors we have to look at the detail, topography, so on and so forth. But let us go back, because apparently this is one of the reasons why, from 2010, FAN decided to still manage this runway. Unfortunately, their maintenance was not up to the standard because that runway damaged up to 4 aeroplanes.
So which leads to the next question, really. Now that we have this runway up and about now, how should the maintenance be scheduled? Is it periodically, overnight, every fortnight, or how should it be?
You will be surprised that part of this maintenance is actually every day, every single day. And not just that, I just said every day not to belabor the point. Most times when an aircraft is about to take off, you would sometimes see a small van with its light flashing, roaming around. It's a runway inspection for foreign object damage. It's an inspection that you do not just once in a day. You have to do that before you open the runway if it is not a 24-hour runway. But every now and then, after an aircraft takes off and lands, a number of aircrafts, you have to go across the length and breadth of that runway to ensure that there is no object that could cause damage. However, and case in point, top brass, 2015, I think it was in March, the aeroplane got damaged in Abuja because there was some bit of little walk going around the runway, and there was an object. Their nose wheel hit on that object, damaged their flap system that cost them over $200,000 to fix. And having said that, I think the government should try to revisit this issue and see that top brass is compensated, because that should not have happened.
Okay.
So hopefully we've learned some lessons here. But this particular renovation of the runway has not come without huge cost to the Nigerian federal government and of course the different sectors. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back we'll discuss this even further with Captain Dong Rangpam. Looking at the reopening of the Abuja airport ahead of schedule. Of course, the Minister of State for Aviation, Hadi Sirika, put his career on the line when he said, if this airport is not ready by April 19th, I will resign my job. But thankfully, he doesn't have to resign. Captain Rangpam, thank you for staying with us. Now, we're talking earlier, behind the camera, of course, about how it is necessary, really, for some people to actually pay for this oversight, to put it kindly, to allow an airport runway to not be fixed for a whole 15 years behind schedule.
It is truly a grave error that has cost the country dearly. Nonetheless, before I go into that,
you're doing the math because you're writing. You
yes.
seem to be calculating the.
I was just looking at a figure that I got off FAN. The runway repairs alone cost about 5.9 billion.
Yes.
I don't know whether that includes the enhancements at the airport, because they put some new lifts in there. They refurbished the place, air conditioners and other things like that to provide the travel experience a bit more comfortable and pleasing to our esteemed customers who have been disappointed of, of having to go to Kaduna and then all the way here. Nonetheless, it's not all that bad. I'd like to say the good bits now before we go into some positive criticisms and solutions, possible solutions. Yeah. I would say that this was handled quite nicely, and people that I'd like to give kudos to are the traveling public. They were patient as usual.
Indeed.
There were some complaints, but they were not too serious complaints. Part of the complaints were with regards to the logistics on the transportation and the shuttle of the buses and so on and so forth. And I got one of the passengers actually called me to say, where can he complain? One of the buses didn't have a wiper on. So it wasn't something too serious. For those
buses, sorry for diverting a bit.
Yes.
For those buses, what we got is that 84 million naira was spent on transporting people from Abuja to Kaduna and Kaduna back to Abuja. 84 million naira. And a bus didn't have what?
Wiper on.
Okay, there you go.
So, well, these are all part of the experience. Hopefully we'll learn from them. And the logistics arrangement was tough to organize anyway. And possibly one saving grace is those foreign airlines that decided not to fly into Kaduna
Imagine
at all.
if they did.
Because if they did, if they had come in their full glory and retained the shuttle, we will not have been able to cope with it. So that's one thing that worked well in our interest. Also, Kaduna had the exposure, again, that Senator Shehu Sani was asking for.
You could actually say they've tasted the forbidden fruit and there's no going back.
Well, Kaduna has been an international airport, only that most of the time it's seasonal. Kaduna also had some enhancements, which was good. It's well overdue for that. It's an international airport, but usually it doesn't get very busy until the Hajj and other things like that. Okay. So there's some positives that happened in this. The traveling public, they were patient, as like I said. The federal and Kaduna state infrastructure was deployed to ensure security. We did not have any accident on the road. We did not have any kidnappings of the passengers or robberies of their cargo and bags. So these are things that worked out well. And I would say that, we handled this quite well. And kudos to those who all pull out the stops to make sure this happened. Now, Kaduna Terminal also got serious enhancement. They used to have just one machine. Now they have more than 3. So this is also going to increase the facilitation of passengers out of Kaduna Airport. I would also add that the runway, if you look at it from the pictures, fantastic. It looks really good. Really good. So there are some positives, but all of these will have to come at a cost.
Yes,
the flip side is that why did this happen? And the reason why we want to know is not to vilify people, but to ensure we put into place processes and procedures so that there will not be a recurrence.
Indeed.
I would like to ask a question. It's not rhetoric, it's an actual question out there. How many airports out of the 22 in Nigeria have their runways expired as we speak?
Good question.
And I would like FAN to slightly be proactive and go through to ensure that the maintenance program that are designed for all runways are adhered to, so that we do not wait for an incident or a debacle like this before we do our jobs. Some people are responsible for ensuring proper maintenance.
But do you think that will
carried out.
really happen if nobody is made to take responsibility for not fixing the Abuja airport, for example? Where is the deterrent in allowing things to just go on like nothing happened?
I expect Senator Hadi Sirika is going to do something about this, and that's why we are making this public appeal.
Are you sure the VP sacked some people for negligence and they were called back? Or what's happening? So do you think the government has the willpower to do anything really?
They do have a willpower.
Okay.
They do have a willpower, and for the senator to put his career on the line, I'm sure he will not take this lying down. Remember, part of the agenda he has brought, which is commendable, is concessioning, starting with our 4 major airports, and even those ones that are not major. They want a concession to make sure that these airports are run efficiently and will not be an embarrassment to the country. And one thing I would like to add, and I have had, the Nigerian Aviation Safety Initiative, a group I belong to, has had this thought for quite a while, is that we need to get a bit more stakeholders on board, have something called the Aviation Advisory Council.
All right.
Okay.
And have people to just join and brainstorm and look at what is happening, critique it, and prefer possible solutions. This will increase the body of knowledge of our system managers, such that just in case they overlook some things.
Because I remember the Kaduna, the airport thing, a lot of calls were made. Okay, don't go to Kaduna, you lose a lot of revenue. But the government didn't listen to you. So what would change really with this association you're talking about?
Well, it's neither here nor there. It just depends on the desire to positively impact and also to get group synergy with regards to government policies. And this brings me to the word policy. We need to have short, medium, and long-term policy in place that will be sustained, will be implemented, will be constantly reviewed to ensure that it is on track. I know the minister came up with a roadmap, but that was also the same thing. The previous minister, Stella Odwa, brought out a roadmap, I think it was 2012 or 2011. And of course, that roadmap
that fell flat on its face.
It fell flat on its face because we still have these problems that we have just, scaled through one of them now. I would also add that.
And there's nothing good in that roadmap that this government can continue with or borrow from or something.
They did accomplish quite a lot, like the Enugu airport and a few other places. They had good plans, but these plans were not sustained. They should not be in isolation from the policy. If you just have a roadmap and you have short-term budgets, what will happen after that roadmap is completed, if at all it is completed?
Now, speaking of budgets, you just reminded me of something we were talking about earlier. The 2017 budget has not been passed.
And a quarter has passed already.
A quarter has passed, and you have so much money that's been spent on this Abuja renovation.
Where did that money come from?
Some 10 billion naira.
Unbudgeted.
Where did it come from? What will suffer because of this unbudgeted for expenditure?
Well, other things that were originally on the budget that are not top priority, unfortunately, will suffer and may have to be deferred. However, I would say we need to get out of this firefighting mentality, because you will find out that this will take center stage, and the plans that we had for infrastructural upgrade, training, will now take a back seat. This is spending that is totally avoidable and unnecessary if we had had the foresight of building one, either the second runway, or two, ensuring that the proper maintenance was done. FAN should have shut down this runway well before aircraft started having incidents and accidents.
So there's opportunity now to include that in the 2017 budget, at least maintenance.
That is true.
That issue be stated out. And
I think that FAN is one of the aviation agencies that is deeply engraved in corruption. And I think it should be investigated publicly.
But of course, experts are already saying, not to discountenance what you just said, I'm sure that should set the... I mean, well, Hadi Sirika should be listening to this
Yes.
now. Experts are saying that the second runway in the Abuja airport that work should begin ASAP. Do we need to emphasize that?
No, I think we have all learned from the embarrassment we suffered, from the accidents that occurred. Thank goodness. I hope those airlines are not going to charge us for the inconveniences. For instance, was it in the Saudi airline, was it 2014 or 2015 actually, that they landed a cargo 747 that was incapacitated on the runway for 18 hours. It closed the runway. It landed 9 p.m. at night. It was taxiing out, and I think some of the equipment they brought for this kind of shoddy rehabilitation of the runway, they kept the equipment, the aircraft impacted the runway, impacted the equipment, and could not move. And we did not have equipment to tow this runway for 18 hours. Runway was closed from 9 p.m. until about 2 p.m. Sorry, yeah, 9 p.m. in the evening until about 2 p.m. the next day. You can imagine the cost for the traveling public, considering that that is the second major airport with the highest traffic in the country. And that's just one thing.
Wrong palm.
We are wrapping up, all right?
Out of so many issues that need to be tackled with our airports. Thank you so much.
But we're wrapping. Do you foresee that will generate more funds now with the safety, the measures and the reopening? Perhaps the airport will generate more funds. Do you see that?
Most definitely. It will generate more funds. And I think also that we'll have the support and the confidence of both the traveling public and our foreign compatriots and other airlines.
And more FDI might just come into the country through that. Okay, thank you.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for your time and, of course, your insight as always, Captain Dong Rang Pam. Let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll take the final lap on the show.